Welcome back to the Afternoon Snack Podcast. I'm Meredith, here as always with Alex and Ivy. Today is Sunday, the November the 8th, and it's a great day. Truly. Not quite as good as yesterday, but not bad. Because, what happened, Alex?
Joe Biden won the election, and the vice president is Kamala Harris, who is the first female vice president of the United States.
Ever.
Yeah.
Yep.
And not just a woman.
Yeah, woman of color, multiracial, so African American and Indian American, which is a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
That's like not only obviously female representation, but female minority representation, which is important, especially I think, now where we have more data on the election, it's like becoming more and more apparent that female minorities are like the major demographic that elects the Democratic Party, like over and over again. We have female minorities to thank for this.
Yeah. And we're not on here to voice our political opinions. I mean, you'll tell that who we were rooting for, but we're more here to talk about what has happened. Yeah, what it means.
Yeah. So she's just I'm sure that maybe you don't, but Kamala Harris is not the first person who's been on a presidential ticket, first woman. It's obviously Sarah Palin back with who did she run with? John McCain.
Yeah.
That was in 2010, which to be honest, I remember that because of the SNL skits.
I know, Tina Fey.
Who was I love presidential SNL years. I don't really watch SNL except on presidential election years. But Tina Fey is just one of my favorites anyways. She did a phenomenal Sarah Palin.
Yeah, she did.
I can see Russia from my house. And then Ferraro, who ran back in the 80s. 1984, which is T-minus 4 years for Meredith. T-minus 5 years for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't remember that one. I'm sure my parents do.
And then Hillary Clinton, obviously.
Well, obviously presidential ticket.
Yeah.
Hillary was the first presidential candidate. So I don't know. To me, it feels big. It for a number of reasons, but certainly easier to be an American as of yesterday. I've basically it's convenient because I live here in Canada and I don't correct people really when they call me Canadian. I'm not going to be like, oh, actually I'm American. No, I just for 4 years I've let that slide because I haven't really been particularly proud of the United States and the way that we're seen on a global scale, which sometimes you don't really experience until you leave the country. So I remember it's apparent here. It gets very evident how the U.S. is sort of viewed here. And then we were in Sweden and Denmark last summer. And I remember when we got off the train in Copenhagen, one of the first things that I saw just out of nowhere was a giant Trump baby balloon. And I was like, okay. So it
didn't paint the best picture of him.
No. And it was one of those things I have to hand over a U.S. passport to get into the country. And it's why do I feel so ashamed that people know, that they look at that passport and they look at me and they probably just make all kinds of assumptions. So it's certainly easier. And then the second reason, obviously, is, because it's validation for women all over the globe, certainly in the U.S. And
the U.S. is the leader of the free world.
Yeah.
So what's happening here, it sets a tone, arguably, for the rest of the world. Even though I live in Canada, I was so invested in this election. I've been invested in what's going on with the coronavirus in the U.S. We are much closer to the U.S. than other countries, European countries and such. But what's going on in the U.S. has a huge impact on what's going on in the rest of the world.
Yeah, which is not something, I think a lot of Americans don't realize that. Mm-hmm. And it's why Europeans, Canadians, that's why people are so invested in what's going on in the U.S. because it really sets the tone for the rest of the world. So yeah, it was a big day, and it's something that we've like, all of this is coming together really nicely for us because it's a topic that we've discussed on occasion. And so you were just listening to a podcast by with Brene Brown and
Abby Wambach.
Abby Wambach.
Yeah. Yeah, and so Abby Wambach, if you don't know, I don't know exactly the years. I think she retired in 2015 from the U.S. national women's soccer team. And Brene Brown is, I mean, if you don't know who she is, you should look her up. She's done TED Talks, and she's basically, I think she's a psychologist who basically researches like vulnerability and shame. Those are kind of her primary
Encourage.
Focus of research. Anyway, she has a podcast, and Abby Wambach was on it. Abby has written a book. It's called Wolfpack. And I haven't read the book, but they kind of go through each chapter and they discuss like why Abby wrote about that, what's her personal experience with it. And basically the book kind of describes like as a female professional soccer player and just like a female in the world, her experience and what she thinks of like the old rules versus the new rules of like a female. And one of the chapters, basically she said the new rule or the old rule was be grateful for what you have. Be grateful and ambitious, which is perfectly fine. She thinks that the new rule should be grateful, be ambitious, but demand what you deserve. And then Brene Brown went on to say that like she agrees that most females, they can't accept their success. They think it's like short-lived, or
they've been given the opportunity.
It could be taken away at any moment. Maybe not as well earned as their male counterparts. And Abby Wambach explained her story behind this new rule and her perspective. And she was accepting an award, a retirement award, with Kobe Bryant and Peyton Manning.
It was a Lifetime Achievement Award at the ESPYs.
Yeah. And, you know, she was up there on stage, extremely grateful for the opportunity that she had been given, just like anybody would be, male or female, I imagine. And, you know, the lights went out and they walked off the stage, and she said it hit her like a ton of bricks. This feeling that, you know, even though she's being treated as an equal with these two right now in terms of her sports achievements, she's walking off the stage thinking to herself, these two amazing athletes are walking into an entirely different retirement than she is. They're thinking, what am I going to do with my millions of dollars that I made? What am I going to invest in? How am I going to make more money, or whatever it is? Whereas she's walking down the steps off the stage thinking to herself, how am I going to pay my mortgage next month? And she went on to say that, you know, she fancied herself as a pretty great athlete, which arguably she is or was, and represented the United States for several years in the Olympics and on the soccer field. And she didn't make, you know, and she's throughout her whole career was thinking to herself, you know, I'm so grateful for this opportunity. Like, I got to travel the world. I got to represent my country. Like, this was, you know, in some way given to me. Of course, she knows that she earned it, but I think in the back of her head, it's like, be grateful for the opportunity. Whereas now you see, and I think this is partially because of Abby, you see the national women's soccer team pushing for equal pay, and rightly so. I mean, they're sacrificing, or not sacrificing, but their life is committed to representing the country in sport.
Yeah, and they're the more successful team. When you look at, you know, the national program, the men's national team is like hilariously not successful.
Yeah.
And the women's team is. And so, you know, the argument there is like, why then are the women making 1/10 of what the men are? Why is that? And so it's, you know, I think for a long time, and this is the U.S. national team, maybe specific. Well, actually, it's kind of women's sports. For a long time, they were probably just grateful that a women's league existed.
Yeah.
And that they got to play. And you see this theme across all sports. You see it with the women's national team. You see it with the women's Like there's two women's hockey, like professional, quote unquote, professional leagues that exist. You see it there. The league that's doing the best job at it, and it should be no surprise, is the NBA and the WNBA. They're leading the way. And it's like, the U.S. women's national team lost their lawsuit against USA Soccer, but it's like, all right, like, we see you. We're gonna continue this fight. And that, like, those themes, it just kind of goes to like what we're brought up to think and believe and how to behave as women. And it's like I'm sitting here recording this pod, and like we've talked about this, I'm so uncomfortable even recording this because it feels on a level like I'm asking for too much, or I'm ungrateful, or like we should be qualifying everything that we're about to say, and it makes me uncomfortable. Like, it makes me uncomfortable to think about some of the men in our life, like, oh, are they going to listen to this and be uncomfortable? Like why that's ingrained in us as women, like as much of a feminist as I hold myself out to be, I still can't, like, I have a hard time getting around some of the anxiety about, pointing out systemic inequalities, and that, the pay gap still exists.
Yeah. Brene Brown went on to say in that segment of the podcast that she used to teach a course, and one of the exercises in the course was as a student, you would create your own grading system. And then at the end of the course, you would grade yourself based on your grading system. And she said that she had to completely stop doing that because all of the males would come up and be like, nailed it, A+. And then the females would come up or explain their grade, and they'd be like, I gave myself a B, but like, I don't know, I think like maybe I deserve more of a B-. I'm not really sure because I just don't really know. Like, what do you think? Do you think? And she's sitting there like, oh my God, stop. It's just questioning and wondering if you actually like earn something. And I mean, I would agree with that. I wonder that all the time myself. Like, I'm grateful for the opportunities and like, but do I demand what I deserve? I mean, I don't know. I mean, even in business or my like previous job, I do kind of coast through like, oh, wow, I've been given this great opportunity, and that's fine and grand. But like, even with our business, I'm thinking like, I don't know, there's still that question in my head.
Yeah. Like, has this been given to us? Are we just lucky?
Are we good enough? Like, if compared against a equal male counterpart, like, how do we stack up? Like,
yeah, like there's that constant worry in my mind that the clients that I have, if approached by an equally qualified male business owner or nutrition coach or whatever, that they wouldn't hesitate to go with the male. Straight up. Like, that is an anxiety that I have every single day. Because it's like, how could you take me seriously? I'm a female. And like, I certainly don't, it's not like a major anxiety that I have, but it's back there. And it keeps me on it does make me want to have safety nets, or it makes me want to say yes to other opportunities just in case. Whereas like, I don't think that men go through life, with thinking like, oh, I'm so grateful. I'm so lucky that I have this opportunity. No, like, men go through life, and like, I'm generalizing here again, like, I'm not going to like qualify everything that I say, but in general, I think men go through life thinking, fuck yeah, I deserve this. I earned this.
Yeah.
I'm exactly where I need to be. Like, this is where I belong. Like, I'm going to reach for higher because I deserve it.
Yeah.
I deserve more money. I deserve more opportunity. I work hard.
Yeah.
That's how men go through life. Women, it's like, yeah, I work hard, but like, man, I'm so thankful that I have this opportunity. I'm so grateful to the people that enable this in my life. And it's like, that is a hard thing to stop doing. Like, I mean, I do it, you do it. I worked, for 6 years in a very progressive field, like pharmaceuticals, even on the East Coast, operates more like a West Coast company. extremely progressive, very active in LGBTQ communities. You know, one of my my mentor and my boss and my supervisor was a woman, and you know, still there's anxiety when I would, you know, when I would get up and present in a room full of still mostly men, because engineering is a mostly like male field. And it's like, how am I going to get up and you know, talk about something which frankly I'm an expert in? Like, they're not going to take me seriously no matter what comes out of my mouth. Like, it's just it is an anxiety, and it goes beyond like just your basic run of the mill imposter syndrome, which I think probably women suffer from more often. It's just, it's straight up like this inequality is hard coded.
Mm-hmm. I remember one of my classmates in law school. I was sitting on the bus to go downtown to the courthouse for something. And we both, so I was with him and his girlfriend, and she and I had both been selected to article at this big firm. And it was like a pretty big accomplishment. Like, I'm proud of it. And I remember him saying to us, like, oh yeah, this firm, like, they only hire good looking women. Like, and kind of like looked at us both. And like, I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, it's like, really?
Like, it's 2016
like,
or whatever.
That's, for starters, that's not true. Or at least I don't think it is, based on the people there. They were normal looking people. Like, I'm like, how? So I don't even need to say what he was saying or what I presumed he was saying.
He's saying, like, you're good looking.
I got hired partially because of the way that I look. And maybe, I mean, this is male and female, and this is partially just psychology and preference. People prefer better looking people, or more normal looking, not normal, but like average. What would be considered beautiful.
Yeah.
If you are compared against an equal counterpart, it's more likely that the better looking person will get the job. It's psychology. But for a male who in 2000 and what was it, 18, to say that,
like,
to his girlfriend and to his friend out loud, is just like beyond belief.
I mean, but is it?
It's not, but it is. I just, you know what I did? Nothing.
Yeah. Because like what? Like,
but in the back of my head, I'm thinking, like, really?
what was going through your head in that moment?
I kind of just sloughed it off. I was like, well,
did you think to your,
at least I got the job.
Yeah, exactly. I'm so grateful for this job at this wonderful / kind of apparently sexist company. Like, did you think to yourself, like, I can't say anything?
I don't think so. I think it was just in my head. Like, you just don't. You just kind of go, okay.
Yeah.
And interestingly, when I got to that firm and started working there, there were quite a few females who worked there, but the number of female partners were much lower than the number of male partners. And this is well known in that field. Like, it's, especially in Calgary, it's very old school, like oil and gas based. And I mean, my mom went through it. She has stories about it. It certainly wasn't like that when I was there, in terms of like the way that females were treated. But there was definitely discussion and more action taken within the female group of lawyers to make it aware that they were the minority and that needed to change.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's still an issue, but, you know, we're taking more action. And I guess my point is to say, like, it exists in probably almost every single career.
Yeah. And the fact that kind of thing, like, you know, whether it overtly happens or not, whether you feel it because something is said to you like that, or you feel it because you look up the management chain and you don't see anyone who looks like you. The fact of the matter is, like, historically, women have not felt empowered to say anything.
Yeah.
To point it, even point it out.
I think so. If you look at boards, corporate company boards, I don't have the exact statistic, but it's safe to assume that they're majority male. Yeah. I mean, you look at politics, you look at Senate seats, it's overwhelmingly male. And you talk to people and they'll say, you know, we don't choose female or male based on their sex. It's just like the best man is put forward. best man or woman is put forward.
Yeah.
So how is it that there are so many males that are so much better than females?
Mm-hmm.
How does that happen? I mean, I think there's two things. There's number one, males just are like probably picked or
Subconsciously.
yeah. And then the second thing is there are fewer females who are driven to those seats
Yeah.
or positions.
Yeah, and that could be a number of reasons. Like, I mean, it kind of goes back to like what I was saying with engineering. Like, you can't look at the demographics in a, an engineering department and say like, oh, it's 80% men, it's sexist. Like, the fact of the matter is, like, it goes all the way, like, I'm going to go down a bit of a rabbit hole here. It goes back to education, elementary education, and how empowered do girls feel to seek out,
Math.
education. Yeah. How empowered do they feel to go into STEM? How empowered do they feel to go into, engineering fields? It goes all the way back, because if a girl feels like they aren't smart enough inherently or don't deserve those opportunities, they're not going to seek out an education in engineering or in science or in technology. Straight up. And if they don't do that, then they're not going to get hired into engineering departments. And so what you see there is not a reflection of discrimination in hiring. Mm-hmm. It's a reflection of let me think of the word here, because the first thing that came to mind was oppression, and it's not that. It's a reflection of the opportunities that children are empowered to seek out when they're young.
Yeah.
And I
think those opportunities are there, but they're not empowered to.
And the same thing probably for, for nursing or for teaching. Like, if boys don't feel empowered, or that it's, manly and masculine to seek out career opportunities in nursing or in, primary education, then you're going to see that reflected in those areas also.
Yeah.
And then you could go into the argument of why are those fields so underpaid when you compare them to largely male fields, but that's a rabbit hole we should probably not go down.
Yeah.
But as far as like representation on executive boards, like it's largely men, and it's not to say that there aren't qualified female candidates out there. But I think it stops, right? Like, I saw it stop. Like, I worked for the company that I worked for, Biogen, like, great company. And you would see women, up in middle management, upper management, but still, like, you see the board of directors and the CEO and the CFO, and they're men.
Yeah.
So there's a ceiling. It's just like, where is the ceiling? I think that it still exists for most companies somewhere.
Yeah. When both when Kamala Harris and Joe Biden came onto stage last night for their speeches, I cried. And I was kind of shocked at my emotions, because like I'm not an American. I'm not African American. I'm not like, I don't feel like I'm a minority. I am in a sense because I'm gay, but like, I guess I never really like, I just wouldn't have thought that I would have been that impacted by it. And like, when she walked out on that stage, I can't even describe what it was I felt. It was just like pure joy, elation. And not just because, the person I wanted to win won, or the people I wanted to win won, but because it meant so much for the country and for the world. Mm-hmm. It was just, I just felt like it was just this like breakthrough or something.
Yeah. It, like, the last 4 years have just made me mad. And I don't think I realized how heavy it was and how mad I was until last night, when it was like a total reversal of all of those emotions. I think that's probably what you felt. And, on top of that, I probably would have felt that if it was two men. Mm-hmm. The fact that it was Kamala Harris, who is this just like fireball of a woman who, like, she has those traits that sometimes are twisted into being negative about women. She has this like fiery passion about her, and she has a look and she says things. I mean, she made Brett Kavanaugh cry. Like she's in a lot of ways would be described as like kind of, for lack of a better word, aggressive. But that's how people like to describe women like her. And so she has all of those qualities, and Joe Biden like had the audacity to pick her, which is what she said in her speech. And it felt good to see someone who I admire for that reason. I've certainly been described that way a lot of my life. I mean, every job review I ever had, every yearly review, it was just, I'm a very red person. Like, I have a lot of those traits. They get held against me. And so to see someone like that elevate to like, one of the highest positions in the world, it's awesome. Like it feels good. It's like, it's liberating. I feel lighter.
Yeah.
It made me, I think, it's been hard for me to envision the future, because it's like, what is the future if, this is how the leadership in the US is? Like, do I want to bring kids into this? I have no idea. But like, Kamala Harris walked out and she had her like 2 little nieces out there, and I was like, this is okay.
I was struck like when they were panning around the people who were there, and even just in other cities when you would see some of the coverage, and I would see like black women or any color woman or man really, and young girls specifically. And it was like, these girls are this is so symbolic to them. Like, this is so empowering for them, specifically them. And it's like, they need this. Like, we need this.
Yeah.
It was just, and then when Joe Biden got up there and started speaking, it was so refreshing to not only have a coherent speech of actual things, but for him to say things like the word gay, which we haven't heard in 4 years from the president of the United States. Like, as a gay female, like, I don't want to go to the US. I'm scared to hold my girlfriend's hand in certain cities.
Fiance.
Partner. I don't know. It just like, to me, it was like, wow, like, okay, I feel better.
Yeah.
I'm getting emotional. It's like, and then you see on CNN, these reporters, the same thing. It's like every single person who has kids or, who wants a better world for their kids just like was overcome with emotion.
Yeah.
It means a lot in so many ways.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to tell them all, and I'm sure there are things I missed, but to me it was just a really...
Yeah. And it's like, it is important for girls to see it, not necessarily because like they need to be given an opportunity. They need to know that it's okay to go out and get those opportunities, that they belong there, that it's a level playing field. That if you want to be president or vice president of the United States, like, there's nothing stopping you. All you have to do is go get it. It's just what's crazy. And like, I'm ironically titling this, not ironic. The title of this episode is There's Glass Everywhere. So we talk about, Kamala breaking through the glass ceiling, and there's glass ceilings that exist in all industries. But she's broken through a big one. And you'd like to think that, okay, so she's through it, everything's going to be great, people are going to stop questioning her. But the reality of it is, there will be people who spend, the rest of their lives trying to find reasons to discredit her because she's female.
She might wear a dress that somebody doesn't like.
Mm-hmm. She might not do her hair one day.
Yep.
And that's going to be enough for some people to criticize her credentials for that office. Never mind the fact that, like, there's been a baboon in the highest office for 4 years and no one bothered criticizing his credentials. But Kamala, just because she decides to wear Chuck Taylors on a day, is going to, be held to the fire. And so it's like women and I keep using the term female, and I'm trying to stop doing that because it's how you describe a dog. Women everywhere are, in all industries, experience that. And you have to, like, it's unfortunate, but right now you do have to defend your position whatever it is. And, we kind of experience that in this industry, in fitness and nutrition. And, when you look at who are the experts, and I'm going to, we're saying fitness and nutrition, it does exist for both. When you look at who are the coaches that name 3 strength and conditioning coaches, name 3 experts in the field of nutrition, and you tell me if any of those 6 people are female.
I mean, yeah.
They're not. And nutrition is a very interesting industry, especially kind of nutrition and health and lifestyle coaching, which is, different than the field of, registered dietitians, what we do. I would say a lot of the legwork, the interaction with clients, with people on a daily basis is done by women. There are a lot of women in this industry. And when you think about, the people who I follow on Twitter and on Instagram, they're men. Mm-hmm. The experts in the field are men. Like you're looking at Helen Aragon, Lane Norton, James Smith, Lyle McDonald. Like those are the people who are considered experts in the field of nutrition and in coaching nutrition. And then you have people like us. You have EC. You have these small businesses who are owned by women or people who just, women who just coach on their own. And the messaging is totally different, which is something that we've talked about. And we kind of we thread a fine line with what we put out there and what we're comfortable putting out there. And there's a lot of stuff that, we put up on Instagram that even when I put it up, I'm like, ooh, that's kind of aggressive. And the tone that we take is not a tone that you see often by women in this industry. And you compare that to the way that Lane Norton puts information out, or, the way that Lyle McDonald can talk about, failed dieters, the way that James Smith puts information out, especially. Yeah. He's a really very controversial character online.
Somewhat, I like his messaging, but it's very vulgar, mm-hmm. partially I think because he's British, but also because he just, it's aggressive. Yeah. He will aggressively state his opinions without any qualifying language.
Yeah. Usually without citing anything. Mm-hmm. Whereas when we do it, it's okay, I'm going to, we usually qualify it to an extent, and there's usually citations.
Mm-hmm. If there aren't citations, there will almost always be a man who comes onto our page, or actually another woman, it actually doesn't really matter, who will say, what study is this? Where are the citations? I posted one the other day, it was a while back, about why you should eat the same number of calories on rest days. Mm. And I didn't actually even do any research. I just know because of the way that I just know from my what I know, what I've learned. And I kind of came to the conclusion that you should eat more calories on rest days. And some guy comes on and says, well, where's the study? I'm like, there is no study. There's a study for all of the points that I make, replenishing glycogen stores and whatever else I used to make that conclusion. It's there is no study for the...
I, Alex Parker, am drawing my own conclusion.
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of, a lot of people have that opinion, mm-hmm. and I just said it.
Yeah.
And it was just it's I don't know. There's nothing in there that isn't known. All of the points that I make, it seemed like a logical conclusion. This is why you should eat the same amount on rest days if you're training for performance.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's no different than... I remember when you did that blog post on the vegan...
Oh, the Game Changers?
The Game Changers.
Oh, my God.
And so you posted on Instagram, a short version.
Yep.
And then go see my blog. And the comments were so, negative, firing back at you.
Number one, I had I had pulled out every single citation that they had in the documentary and had explained its actual, okay, they're using it to say that this is true, when in reality, this is what this study says is this.
Yeah.
So it's basically the whole point of the blog was debunking the Game Changers documentary using their own references.
Yeah.
Like that was the whole point of the blog.
And not only were you getting people who clearly hadn't even read the blog, just being like, well, what do you know? Not only that, but asking you what your qualifications were.
Yes.
What is your education? What gives you the right to make these, like, to debunk
and I had to
such
be like,
a well-known video?
Like I shouldn't have to explain that. Like I spent years reading research.
And then it doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
And then Lane Norton posted almost the exact same thing. A bunch of people ended up doing it.
Yeah, but he basically took, I mean, like we don't have to get into it. It was probably plagiarized.
But anyways, and you looked at the comments on his page, and granted he had at that point, and he still does have way more followers than we do. That's beside the point. But almost every single one of his comments were positive. Like, thank you, dude. Like, thank you. You're the best. You're so smart. Like, wow, I never would have realized. Thank you for, putting this to light.
All because he's probably a male and has the letters PhD after his name.
But like, he basically had done the exact same thing that you did, which is like debunk it by using each and every reference from the actual video and explaining where they came to that conclusion and that they were far-reaching.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's like...
So anyways, at the same time, that sort of position that we feel that we've been put in as women in the field, I think has lit a bit of a fire under our butts to really fight tooth and nail to defend ourselves.
Yeah, and to be the best. Like, we think we're the best company out there. Like, I'm going to prove it.
Yeah.
I want, like, that was kind of a pivoting moment specifically because I was like, oh shit, like, people are talking about us. People are looking, like, whether they want to argue with me or agree with me, like, they're talking about us and they know that we're, like, relevant. Mm-hmm. And so, like, I want to take what we have, which is a company who's, like, founded by 2 women, and have it stand in ranks with companies founded and run by men, and with male experts in the field, because that's like, I know that's where we belong. Yeah. And it might take us longer to get there because of who we are. It might take us longer to get there because we're sort of immediately written off by people who look at us and they go, oh, they're a couple of athletes who have a platform.
Or at times maybe discount ourselves.
Yeah. But I'm fine with it taking longer because I know that once we get it there, number one, I don't think I'm ever going to stop pushing it. But once we get it there, I'll know that it is a result of our hard work, and it's exactly where we deserve to be. Mm-hmm. It's not that we weren't given anything. It's not that we're known for going to the CrossFit Games. It has nothing to do with that. I want to be known. Like, I don't give a shit if anyone remembers that I went to the CrossFit Games in 2018. I don't care. I'm not a CrossFit Games athlete. I'm an expert in nutrition.
Yeah.
That's what I want to be remembered as.
And I think that's, when we started Tactic Nutrition, we made an Instagram account that was separate and apart from our personal accounts. Partially because we wanted to grow ourselves in a new way. And our brand was separate from us as individuals, even though we're behind the brand. But another thing was so that we could, voice our opinions separate and apart from nutrition on our personal pages without it necessarily being tied to our business.
Yeah.
And
I think like that, and we've discussed this. I think that, everybody knows, I think most people know who stands behind Tactic. And our personal pages are somewhat maybe synonymous with our business at this point. Mm-hmm. Not totally, but I like that, if you can't get down with me as a person, like, I probably don't want you involved in my business anyways. So it's a bit
considering our business. Yeah.
A bit of a filter, mm-hmm. To there's a barrier. If you're like, oh man, I don't really like that she posts political stuff on her personal Instagram. I'm not going to follow Tactic. I don't want to be a client. Like, good. I don't want you as a client.
Yeah.
I'm cool with that. And like, I've become a little more aggressive with my personal page. Like, there was definitely a period of time, and I think it was, as soon as you start to amass a certain amount of followers, you sort of worry about like, oh, I don't want to piss them off. I don't want to upset them. I don't want them to leave. I don't want them to unfollow me. And I think there are a lot of people out there that still operate with that. And especially because you can make money on Instagram now. Plenty of people do it. I don't make money on Instagram. So like, I've sort of gotten a little pushier with my personal page, and I want people to know where I stand politically. I want people to know what's important to me because, like, representation matters. And it's easy, like, it makes sense when you say that, when you talk about somebody like Kamala Harris getting into office and like, oh, she represents me. She looks like me. She acts like me. But on a micro level, I think that, we already get a lot of, not a lot, a medium amount of attention and respect for representing gays in CrossFit and being outwardly gay. I think it's like, personally, I can put myself easily on the other side of that because I was at one point. And, it's representation means more than just being a certain, like, being gay or being a minority. Like, the people who I follow and I connect with, like, they're posting about the stuff that I care about. Like, I'll post political things. I'll put out the fact that I'm really happy that Joe Biden won and that Kamala Harris is the first female VP. Like, I want you to know where I stand because I want you to feel empowered in your beliefs. Like, imagine, and it's not hard to imagine because it's reality. A lot of these other athletes, CrossFit specifically, it's like it's radio silence on that stuff. So you're a person who feels strongly about the political climate that you're in and about your beliefs, and you look to people who you look up to, and there's nothing. Mm-hmm. There's not even a mention of it. So it's like, oh shit, is this not important to them? Is it weird that it's important to me? Should I be quiet? Should I not say anything? Like, that's what I mean. Like, that's representation on a micro level. That's being real. And, again, I think there's a lot of fear about being political on an Instagram page, if that Instagram page is also how you make a large, part of your income. But a lot of people they posted the black square on that Tuesday for Black Lives Matter. And it's like, okay, so there's that performative activism. Great. Like, maybe you didn't know exactly what to say, and that's at least saying, like, hey, I'm thinking about it. I'm spending some time and thought and reading about this issue. But where is it now? Where is it now where, like, arguably we're making, like, we stand to make strides in that area? And it's not about posting one time on Instagram. It's about sustaining the effort. It's about demonstrating endurance and, what you feel is right or wrong. And I'm not saying, like, everyone has to use their platform in the same way that I do. I don't think that's true at all. But it's being looked at. And, I see how people would feel weird, if you look to the people that you look up to and who were vocal, at least to an extent, back in the summer, and there's nothing now.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I think this time is really tough. The country is so split. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking about the United States and actually Canada for that matter. Like, US politics is a very hot topic right now in Canada and probably around the world.
Yeah.
And I'm going to talk about, I'm going to try to stay away from my opinion and more talk about facts. Yeah. But Trump has been a big part of dividing this country. And, you heard about the news about, like, secret Trump voters. Like, people know, and they might believe what Trump believes, which is, like, pro-life or whatever. Republicans have different values, things like that. But you can't deny the fact that Trump has created so much tension. And so as an athlete who wants to appeal to everyone within CrossFit or their sport, or they're being followed for a completely other reason, whether they're a Biden advocate or a Trump advocate or a Republican or a Democrat, like, because the country's so split that they do stand the chance to piss off 50% of their followers by posting something, especially if it's something pro-Trump, actually, or pro-Biden, because the other side is so fired up.
Yeah.
And I think partially that's Trump's fault because he's so combative and uses these strong words and has really pinned people against each other. Like, the amount of violence in the country just based on like people being punched in the face and people having to be secretive about supporting.
Yeah.
It's just, I think it's tough to say to an athlete, like, you should be proactive about what you believe in when, like, it is scary out there.
I guess
and
what I should have pointed out, like, it's not that I'm saying they should. It's like I feel strongly about being proactive and about putting it out there, because I want, even if I only have 20,000 some followers, I want my followers to know, the ones who like agree with me or whatever, to know that I care about that stuff.
Yeah. And I don't think there's a should or shouldn't.
No.
For that matter. I never thought there was. I think the Black Lives Matter was a big eye opener because there was so much shame and criticism over should and shouldn't. It was driving me absolutely crazy.
That was like the worst of the internet.
I couldn't. It actually made me so sad that people were trying to help or trying to be a part of it and were just getting, for lack of a better word, shit on.
Yeah, like damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah, it didn't matter what was on their Instagram, what wasn't on their Instagram. It was like people were just firing at them. And people were firing at friends, family, each other. We were all fighting the same fight.
The thing is, like, we were at that moment collectively as a society thrust into the middle of a social experiment because we as a society have never experienced anything like that. Any kind of like something that got that much traffic on social media and just triggered this immediate response. And the response was on social media. It was in person. There were protests. And it's like, there was gaslighting. There was virtue signaling. There was all these things happening all at once. And instead of, I guess all kinds of messages were getting amplified at that moment. It was like, you're just saying this so that, because everyone else said it, or, don't post a black square because it's blocking the hashtags, or like, write a post, don't write a post, don't use that word, use this word, stop saying all lives matter. It diminishes Black Lives Matter. It's like, holy shit. Like, just like the people are trying.
Anxiety was like 15 out of 10 that week.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm like, at one point I'm like, can I email people? Like, I didn't know, like, was it okay to like text somebody about something other than this? Like, it was,
you know what? I'm just going to smash my phone. All right. I'm going to throw it.
No, but like in all seriousness,
I know
that was crazy.
I remember. And that wasn't even that long ago.
Like, we had friends who have big social media followings for their CrossFit, and they were freaking out because they're like, what do I do? What do I do? Like, people don't follow me for politics. They follow me for my sport, but like, I obviously have feelings about this, but I don't know what to say. I don't know when to say it. I don't know what
words to use. What picture
tough.
do I put up? But
I think the world has just, the U.S., our world, North America, at least from my experience, has just been it's been rough.
Yeah, it's yeah.
And I think as much, we obviously talk about it all the time together.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about it with our families all the time. And I think it was about high time that we, pulled our pants up and shared it with you guys.
Yeah. And there's like, I'm still sitting here with like a large amount of anxiety about this podcast.
If it goes up, it will be a miracle because we record a lot of podcasts and then we're like, we can't put that up.
Yeah, it's too much.
So maybe we'll really just do it this time.
Yeah. I think, the takeaway is this, and it's, obviously having women in positions of power is helpful for representation, for women, for minorities. It does break that glass ceiling, but realize that's not the end of the fight here. It's like, this is the beginning. And, on a personal level, I think that a lot of the change happens with controlling your own narrative and controlling the dialogue that runs in your head, and pivoting away from, you can be ambitious, but be grateful first, to be grateful, be proud, be ambitious, and demand what you deserve.
Mm-hmm.
instead of just overwhelmingly being only grateful. You know, it's women are smart. Like we're like, look at
We're the better sex,
who's
really.
the prime minister of New Zealand. Like,
Yeah.
you know, we can be in positions of power. Like we can be respected. We like the way our brains work are a little bit different, and there's a lot to gain from that.
Yeah. I think from my perspective, I know my own experience. I also have a glimpse into other really awesome, smart, ambitious women's heads because I coach a lot of women. I also coach a lot of men. And more with the women than with the men do I see, I think partially because of what's in the media and what has been instilled in us. Like, I mean, even Hillary Clinton had, you know, was criticized for the clothes that she wore and the way that she looked. And it kind of saying, like, going back to, you know, if, you know, a powerful woman doesn't do her hair, but like, you just don't hear that about men. There's so much more pressure on women to, you know, look a certain way. It's just, it's just a matter of fact. Like, yes, there is more discussion about like male insecurity and stuff like that. And that is a thing. I'm not doubting that, but it is so much more prevalent among women. And I think I would go as far as to say as women are not reaching their full potential in life because they are oftentimes so consumed with what they look like, how they're perceived, all of these things, all of these insecurities that have just been developed within them from many different sources, probably most of the time, like unintentionally.
Yep.
And I think in order to change the way that women are perceived is we need to change how we perceive ourselves and speak to ourselves as we want to be spoken to by everybody else and how we deserve to be spoken to.
Yep.
I just have one more point. When we were watching the games, I remember they were interviewing Matt and Tia and pretty much all the athletes. But one thing kind of stuck out, and Tia said, you know, as much as I am proud of, you know, the athlete that I am, if anything, I want to be remembered as a good person, as somebody who cares about others. And I'm like, all right, cool. But then I'm like, wait, I've never heard a male athlete say that. I've heard many female athletes say, or women say that. Never once. I mean, maybe somebody somewhere, but Matt, he doesn't need to say that stuff.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he's a good person.
Like, there are great athletes who are like male athletes who are assholes and no one even cares.
No, but like, but women have to be they don't have to be.
Yeah.
But in order to be acceptable,
you have to put on this front that you're like some sort of humanitarian on top of being an elite athlete. What's ironic is you compare, you compare, you know, Tia to someone like Megan Rapinoe.
Yeah.
Who is just like, number one, Megan Rapinoe is a badass, straight up.
Meredith loves Rapinoe. And when I first discovered this, I was like, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the like U.S. women's soccer team. I find that and this is ironic of me to say, but I find that the way they celebrate is too much. And that kind of goes against what we've been saying this whole time about, like, you know, be proud, be loud.
Yeah.
Like celebrate your success and demand, you know, what you deserve. At the same time, like, I'm also a very modest person, athlete, quiet. And so I'm
when
always
you're
like,
beating Thailand 13-0, maybe cut out the...
Yeah, you don't need to celebrate after each goal when you're like winning 20-0.
I mean, I love it, but...
So when Meredith said she was a big fan of Rapinoe, I was like, oh, great. But you know what? I started following her on Instagram. I started reading stuff about her, and she is
an incredible human being.
Like, she is somebody that everybody should follow. And like, yeah. Anyways, back to your point.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, Megan Rapinoe doesn't have to sit in an interview and say the words, I want to be remembered as a good person who cared for others and who is an activist in certain ways. Why is that? because Megan Rapinoe lives that life every single day. Every single day. That's just who she is. And like, if she wasn't, she would be remembered as a good soccer player.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's, you know, do what you want. Like, I love Megan Rapinoe because she's the best at her sport. She's like, she has a look, like she has a way that she behaves. She has a swagger, which like just really it irritates people.
Yeah.
But I'm like, if you're a woman and you want to have swagger, like, God damn it, go have swagger. I love that. I am here for that.
Yeah.
I love seeing women walk around like that, because it's like, yeah, like, you're there, take up space, take up as much space as you want, because you deserve it.
Yeah.
Like, Megan Rapinoe deserves to take up as much space as she wants.
I think I had okay, and this is kind of on topic, but also not. When I was studying psychology, I remember there was a study, and it was like the way that males and females sit, and males actually sit and stand in a way that takes up more space.
Yeah.
Legs spread.
Go look at
done. Like, women, like, it could be because you're wearing a dress or a skirt, but for the most part, you look at like postures, and it's completely different.
Well, yeah, go look at there's that TED Talk. It's like one of my favorite ones, and it's on power positions. Mm-hmm. And it's talking about them in sort of general terms, but it's like, you know, they did this really simple test where they tested the saliva of people assuming power positions, taking up space, versus people not assuming power positions, assuming like intentionally kind of small. Like, so a power position would be sitting with your legs open, sitting with your arms out, chest up, like hands on your hips, like just you're standing that way, taking
like how Superman stands.
Yeah, power position. And the opposite of that would be like the most submissive position a person can take is like hands on the neck, like arms crossed, hands on your neck, legs crossed, crouching, like making yourself small. And they took saliva from people assuming both, and they saw like, and I can't remember the data, I could bring it up, but it's like a marked increase in testosterone, a decrease in cortisol in the people who were assuming the power positions. And that's male and female.
They actually suggest that before you go into interviews or presentations, you go into the bathroom, stand in front of the mirror, and assume a power pose.
For like 5 minutes.
For 5 minutes, or even a minute, and it will make you perform better.
Yeah. But
it will increase your confidence.
What they've also noticed is that when you put two or more people together and one person assumes a powerful position, so the most often, like you see this most often with men in the man spread, the person who they're speaking with will assume a complementary submissive position. So if someone's got their legs open and they're taking up a lot of space, the person that they're talking to is probably going to get smaller, because to get bigger is kind of like, it's from a nature perspective, creates a bit of conflict. So you can kind of imagine how the male-female dynamic goes if the men are typically the ones, you know, taking up space. And if the female decides to take up space, it's going to offend the man. He's going to leave. I don't know. That's an interesting, there's actually an interesting amount of research around that topic, both in behavior, like posture behavior dynamics, and then actual, like what's going on with your hormones. So, yeah, but that's like, you know, that's all to say.
Now I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, so now next I'm going to say like, no, but we still really love men, and, you know, we're not.
You're about to qualify. Stop it.
I know. I'm sitting here like, okay, we need to wrap this up in a way that pleases everybody.
Okay, so how do we tie this all together so no one's offended?
Yeah.
Also, like, worth noting, I'm sitting with my legs open and you have yours crossed and you're fidgeting with your cord. So
yeah.
Would you say I'm in the power position and you're being, that's okay.
Not going to qualify.
No. Yeah, it's not like, none of this is meant to say that there's anything wrong with men. I have no problem with men. I have many friends who are men and they're great. That's not what this is about. It's not an an us or them kind of thing. Like, it's just simply women deserve to be, and we work hard to be on a level playing field. Progress was certainly made yesterday. And if anything, if you're a woman and, you know, regardless of the industry that you're in, and you don't feel empowered on a level to go out and crush it and to get everything you've ever dreamed of having and then some, after seeing Kamala Harris walk out to Mary J. Blige for her speech last night, if you don't feel that, I'm not sure that you're human. This is what I think.
Yeah. Even if you're a die-hard Republican, if you have a heart, you felt something.
I wouldn't go that far. Yeah, I mean, like I said this yesterday, I think there's a lot of like Republicans who are probably on at least some level, a little bit relieved.
I think any woman in North America or the world was happy to see that. I mean, I might be just completely naive in saying that, but I like to believe that it's true.
Yeah. I always like to remember that there are countries where women aren't allowed to speak in public still.
Yeah.
So, hopefully, one day, maybe not, but definitely a big step.
I was, when they were giving their speeches and after they were done, I was thinking like, 4 years is 8 years. Even if it is 8 years, it's not going to be enough time. Yeah. Like, we need to keep this momentum.
That's the thing. That's endurance. When it's like that is, it's sustaining the effort. That's getting more people to behave like Stacey Abrams. Yeah. And it's like, there's still systemic inequality in this society, and I'm going to like make it my life's work to get rid of it. And that's one person in one state. One person in one state who, like, arguably, had it not been for Pennsylvania, it would have come down to Georgia.
Yeah. It's a good reminder that one person can make a difference. Yeah. You as a person.
And that's somewhat like, so Stacey Abrams, if you're not familiar with that story, Stacey Abrams essentially had the 2018 gubernatorial race stolen from her in the state of Georgia by voter suppression in the urban areas. So a lot of people they couldn't go vote. They didn't know how. They made it difficult, which is something that Georgia has a long track record of doing. So Stacey Abrams lost the race, and instead of, just conceding and feeling bad for herself, she made it her mission for the next 2 years. She got 800,000 people registered to vote in Georgia. 800,000 people. And she's probably going to have an influence over the Senate runoff in January. So she's continuing to do it. She'll continue to do it, after that race is over. And she's probably going to have a bigger impact. And this is kind of how, it's cool how life works sometimes. She's probably going to have a bigger positive impact having gone down this path, which is not the path that she initially set out to go down, than she would have if she had won the gubernatorial race in 2018. I'm calling it person of the year for sure for her. If it's not Kamala Harris, it's Stacey Abrams.
Yeah. Pretty cool story.
Yeah. So I think that kind of wraps it up for us. Do you have any closing things that you'd like to say, Alex?
No, I feel like I said it all.
Yeah.
I really did.
You laid it out there. I did.
I'm proud of myself.
You cried a few times. It's always a good podcast when you get a little watery on occasion. But I think we're just really happy. I think there are a lot of people out there who are happy like we are, and more hopeful for the future than I have been in a long time. I thought that I was going to go Canadian and never look back, potentially, revoke U.S. citizenship. I wouldn't revoke it, but I would definitely use my Canadian passport exclusively when I traveled, but now it's maybe we do end up in the U.S. and I feel better about that than I have. So it's, it's a world where I think, we have my client, Megan Munsell, they're, trying to start a family, and it's I can put myself in her shoes because I feel that anxiety, and I'm in Canada. I felt that anxiety every time I think about starting a family. It's well, what am I going to bring a kid into? And it's got to feel so much better as a parent or, someone who's trying to thinking about starting a family. How reassuring is that?
I think especially after what had happened with the Black Lives, all that. And then now this, it's just it was looking so bleak.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, it was great to see people out there protesting, but just the fact that was necessary. Still, I know I am probably ignorant and naive for thinking like, why is this the world that we're still living in? Why can't everyone just get along? Like, I get it. But yeah, I just, after what have we been through, this is just like a fresh breath of fresh air.
You're crying again.
It's just, it was like, I wasn't even like personally affected. I wouldn't even go that far as like, but to watch it, it was just, I don't know.
I think you've seen parts of society that have been underground and they've been empowered,
given a voice.
And it's nice to see that that's hopefully, at a minimum, going to go back underground. At, best case scenario, maybe we can start to push forward in areas and develop policy and, reach across the aisle and start to work together and be, not, I'm like, no blue states, no red states, like just go back to being the United States, because like it is the best country in the world. It is. Like, I may not live there, but it's like, it's a beacon of hope for the rest of the world, and it's got to be that way. And it's a powerful thing, and like the best. I'm trying to remember what Joe Biden said last night because it was really potent, but it's, we don't demonstrate our power by our power. What was it? What was the quote? It was basically, we demonstrate our power, with our unity or something like that, which is true. Like,
we're not like blue or red. We're American.
Yeah.
And I like that. That's not verbatim. That's paraphrasing.
But it's pretty good because he did make that point many times. So that's about it. This one went long, but I feel like there were like movements and chapters. So hopefully you got something out of it. We've been talking about doing this one for a long time, and I think, it just, everything came together and
it was good timing.
The time is right. Thanks for listening. If you made it through the whole thing, we really appreciate it. You can follow us on Instagram. You can find us at tacticmethod.com. Always feel free to reach out to either of us personally or on the business page. We're always available and more than happy to chat with you guys. So till next time, we'll see you guys.